Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the AI Interconnect podcast, where we dive into real conversation with leaders shaping the future of PropTech and urban innovation. And today, I'm joined by someone whose work I've been following with a lot of curiosity and respect, Johann Villalvir, founder of Just Gravitate. And Joanne is working at the intersection of urban design, technology, and human experience, reimagining how cities can foster connection, safety, and intentional community. Joanne, great to have you here. Welcome on the show.
Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Fantastic, fantastic. Let me let me start with the origin story and at the beginning, your journey. Uh, can you walk us through how you got into this space and what were some of the key experiences or light bulb moments that led you to the creation of Jet Gravitates?
Yeah, great question. And I think it was about 3 years ago. And at that time, I was teaching artificial intelligence at a university in Houston called Rice University. And I was teaching in an AI bootcamp at that time. And I met a friend for dinner that I hadn't seen for a while. And I asked him how everything was going with him. So he mentioned he was buying some properties, rehabbing them, and then selling them back. And he was mentioning about all these problems that he had just trying to find the data in real estate. And since I was teaching that at that time, I was like, that's interesting. There should be something out there for you to do this process a lot more efficiently. And he said there wasn't. I didn't believe him. So I did some research. I looked into the industry. I talked to a lot of potential customers, and I just couldn't believe how outdated the industry was in general. So that was kind of like the start of what turned out to be Gravitate. We started making AI algorithms to find the best properties to invest within the city, right? And from there on, it evolved into now we're focusing on commercial real estate since we saw that's where the most need was.
Very, very interesting. Was there at the start, was there a specific city or community or moment that inspired that inspired this mission?
Yeah. So we were working in a city called Indianapolis in Indiana. And at that time, right? So the product that we're building, it was for residential agents and residential brokers, and also for individual investors. But we arrived at this intersection with where it was very hard to grow because our customers were not doing that full time. But what I mean by that is that the individual investor, for example, they will have a daytime job, and then on the weekends they will do this as a try to make passive income, and that was very hard to uh, it was very hard to get to a product that was great when feedback was only provided perhaps on the weekends, right? And perhaps just like a little bit. So from there, we're like, well, this is a consumer application, and uh, business to consumer applications are just extremely hard for a lot of things. One is that the consumer is not full time involved into this problem. The other one is that they just don't like to pay. As consumers, we're very lucky to have great software that is mainly for free because for the most part we are the product, right? Our data gets sold. We didn't want to do that, so we want to charge people. People did not want to pay as a consumer. So we met with a few commercial real estate brokers, and they were happy to pay. They have this problem all the time because they work on it 40, 60 hours per week. So it was a lot easier to actually get feedback from them. And we just gain momentum from that, right? So we'll build something, show it to them. They'll give us feedback really fast. We'll iterate on that really fast, send it back. And at some point, we had just a much better product for the commercial side of things than we did for residential side of things. And that was kind of like the aha moment of like, well, a product is not just born to be great, right? It becomes great on that path with a lot of feedback and intention from the consumers and the users.
Very, very interesting. In the part of the history, have you been um, always been focused on a community first design, or that evolved over time?
Yeah, I would say that evolved over time, right? So a good example is that today, as we help commercial brokers present communities to their clients, right? Even a community could be even just like an office space or even an office space. Um, and when they present this to a client, the picture is not full because they might have a location, they might have some traffic of that location, right? But that doesn't give the full picture. So even just improving the design by giving them a 3D map, for example, that can show the shape of the building, right? How other buildings are around it. Will they get sun at 2 p.m. on on June or not? That question is so important when it comes to community design because the space impacts everything else, right? So even just improving the design of a software that allows our clients to better understand the spaces serves them better for a community in a community perspective. Yeah.
Okay, okay, yeah. Okay. Let's dive into that. What exactly we are solving here, and for the listener who might not be familiar with, what exactly is just gravitate, and what problem are you solving,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
who are you solving it for?
Yes, great question. So we are an AI and data visualization company, and we're solving the problem of finding commercial real estate, right? So, and who we're solving for is there are different parties involved. So we have what we call as a segmented customer uh, profiles, and so one is that who buys our product is a commercial real estate broker, an office. They buy the license, so that would be known as a economic buyer for some people. But then the end user will be their team. So the other agents within that office will use it. But then the other end user, on the other hand, is that they will be using our product to present something to their own clients, right? So we're facilitating that communication and connection from a brokerage firm with their clients, right? So the client can be you, it can be me. You might be looking for some warehouse space, an office in Barcelona, your new medical office, whatever you need, you go to a commercial broker to find that. There are a lot of challenges between the time you sign the lease for a space to build your community to the time that you contact the broker, right? 6 months, 9 months, it's a long time. It's a lot of work. And all of that is because it's very hard, number one, to find the data, right? So when you go to a broker and you tell them, I need to find a doctor's office in Barcelona because I need to, I want to expand my clinics. Um, they had to go to so many different data sources just to find that data. And I'm not really familiar how it works in Europe, but in the US, that is the case. The data is very segregated. So now the broker has to go and format that data. And they usually employ somebody, a virtual assistant or somebody within their office, right? So that's the first product that we have. We help them move that data into a formatted way in a few seconds instead of having to spend hours. So then now the broker has a few prospects to show you who are looking for a medical office really fast. So now that speeds up the process. And we have come to learn that we speed up the process for between 3 to 5 months for each deal, which is awesome because that means that the community can start getting built faster. You know, if that is perhaps a new office for a new company, or it's a warehouse or whatever is needed, and then that community can get value from that business entity taking place on that space, right? And also the broker getting paid, right? They need to get paid, and
Uh,
this speeds up all that process.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. And one of one of the things that stood out to me in your work is the emphasis on privacy, intention, and authentic connection, which feels especially relevant right now. Um, how do you actually bring those values to life in the project you're working on?
Yeah, that is a great question, and we'll start with privacy, right? So, um, the communication between the client and the broker needs to be very private, because a lot of times they might be working for a company that is publicly traded, or just there's a lot of confidential information that goes back and forth, right? So obviously our app is fully encrypted, is very is private data being shared between the broker and their client, right? So um, then you mentioned something about the human connection there, right? So there's uh, a big rhetoric right now going on in the market that AI is going to replace humans, and we don't believe that to be the case. We think AI is going to enhance humans, which is what we're doing with our own AI systems. Is that we're not
So
replacing the commercial
that's right.
broker connection with the client, with you for this example, right? We're enhancing it. We're allowing them to become super powerful with our technology that uses AI to better serve. At the end of the day, the only thing that is important is the connection that you have with the broker, or the person that you're doing business with, right? And that cannot be replaced by AI. The human connection is not going to be replaced by AI anytime soon, or I don't think ever really. We humans, we like to uh, talk with humans. We need that empathy, and that is not what you're going to get from a large language model AI. So
Yeah, no, exactly. That's true. That's true. I mean, but we still need to ask each other the question that how do you balance tech or AI with human connection? Then there's a where's the threshold? Or
yeah, I think, and we don't know the threshold yet. We're learning it as we go, right? In my personal opinion, is that we'll become a lot more productive. So that connection will become a lot faster, right? So I will give you an example. With our business, the relationship between the broker and the client is very important, right? And they're often become friends because they close deals that are worth millions of dollars, right? They work on them for a few months, and the less time that the commercial broker spends doing paperwork for the client, the more time they can go out for a golf game, or they can go out for dinner, which they do often. They sometimes go on vacation together, right? They become pretty much business partners for that extent of that deal. So our AI enhances their workflow so much that now they have a lot of free time to actually build the
makes
human
sense.
connection, right?
Yes.
So yeah.
No, no, that's exactly that's that's what I am. Definitely the right answer. Definitely the purpose of AI, not to replace, but to help and uh, and help us doing other things, leisure, meeting people, and greater connection. Um, and what does success look like for the communities you help design?
Yeah. So success look like for the communities that we bring a new space in, right? So a good example is right now in San Francisco, the the uh, there's a lot of open spaces that don't have any tenants, right? So if there's open spaces
Yeah,
without tenants, that means that there's no companies paying taxes. That means that it does not go back to the community, right? So our software helps bring companies to those spaces a lot faster. So now, if you're familiar with San Francisco, we're going through a rough patch where there's a lot of homelessness, and we don't know the answer to that yet, right? But obviously, the answer is not less tax money. It's not less companies bringing revenue, right? It's not less businesses coming in, hiring people, and paying them a decent salary, right? So we're helping uh, bring bring more companies to those spaces, bring awareness to those spaces in a better way, so the community can improve from one the taxes that are being generated by the business, the employees that specific business brings to the city, that become patrons to your local restaurant, become patrons to your local gym, become patrons to your local church, right? And then they also pay taxes themselves, right? So we help the community in all those different ways.
awesome, awesome, awesome. Let's let's jump to challenges. And every founder I speak to faces friction points, whether it is market resistance, education, scaling, or something else. And what have you been? What have been some of the biggest challenges you faced in bringing Just Gravitate vision to life?
Yeah, that's a great question, Laurent. And I think and the vision is still being built as we speak, right? So it's not
Yeah.
yet to life. The work is never ending. So I would say some of the most challenging aspects to this point is market resistance. Like actually, first point was very spot on, right? We live in a time where attention is a currency. Everybody's trying to get your attention for any amount of reasons, and because of that, you can tell somebody, "Hey, I will pay you $1,000 if you join me for 30 minutes," and 80% will think it's a scam. The other 15% will just completely ignore you, and then 5% might ask you more information, right? So it's very hard to get people's attention. And on top of that, the industry itself that we're working in is extremely change advert, change resistant. They have been doing business the way they do business for 20, 30 years. They didn't change their ways very often. So market resistance has been one of the biggest one, just being in front of people, getting them to see what they can do with our technology. Once they do that, once they use our technology, once it's they stay there for a long time, right? In fact, nobody has canceled that has used our product to this date, which is awesome. But getting them to the point where they see it, to the point that they get onboarded and then they use it, that's a big one too. It's like, yeah, a lot of them, they pay the fees, they get onboarded, they're ready to use it, they just never get to it, and obviously they will cancel at some point because it's not bringing them value. So I'd say those are the biggest challenges that we have experienced up to this point, and I'm sure there'll be so many more as we scale.
Another one, maybe?
Yeah, I would say just knowing what needs to get built, right? So our customers have problems, and that's what we focus on when we design a solution. At the same time, customers can sometimes not be great at explaining what the root cause of the problem is. So we have to do a lot of shadowing. We go to a customer's office, we see the workflow, but for shadowing it takes time, so they need to give us their time, right? So just knowing what to build, it's difficult because we are not commercial brokers ourselves, right? We're not commercial agents ourselves. That falls into a category that's called, I think, that the founder user, right? Where you're using your own product, so you don't have to wait for feedback because you can just use it yourself and they iterate on that. We don't have that situation, so we rely on our customers to kind of like flash and flag things that they need done, that improvements that they need. So that part is challenging. They're working professionals, extremely busy. Just like everybody these days. So knowing what to build, having that hunch, that instinct, and developing the hunch and instinct, and then fostering it, is difficult.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. No, that's a wonderful answer. Um, do you think the industry uh, is still lagging when it comes to integrating human-centered design with scalable PropTech solution? And what are what are the blind spots that you see?
Yeah. Could you define for me like human centered design?
Human-centered design that you're put together, integrating with the scaling that's for PropTech.
Yeah. So I think especially when designing software, right? And software is not
Yeah.
the only type of innovation that happens. There's so many other innovation happening in the atoms world, right? But over the
Yeah.
last 20, 25 years, most innovations have come in the bits world, which is software. And I think when designing software, it's very easy to forget that you are designing that for a human, right? So I think that's one of the biggest challenges when trying to build something when it comes to software that is human centered. If you're developing anything in the real physical world, in hardware, you're often interacting with it in the physical space, right? And that allows it to be very human centered from a physical perspective, right? There's not a human inside of a digital world that will allow you to see how it interacts and keep that human in the center as you build or design a system, right? So I would say for us, we have to constantly remind ourselves who we are uh, building for, who we're serving, and we often put ourselves on the shoes of that specific person going through the workflow of or the motions of our product.
Awesome, awesome. I appreciate. Um, let's move on trends and a little bit of future. Let's zoom out a bit. There's a lot of talk right now about smart city, but very little about intentional city. And what trend or shifts are you paying attention to that you think will really shape how we design a urban space in the next 2 to 5 years?
Yeah, that is a great question, and I think one of the biggest trends that everybody's worrying about is the declining population, right? So we're not having nearly as many uh, babies as prior generations, and that becomes a problem as an older generation ages, and there's not that younger generation to replace one of that labor, and then to serve that aging population, right? And so that's one of the trends that we're closely watching. And I've seen the case in New York City, for example, that a lot of kids parks within the city have been turned to dog parks. People are not having kids; people are getting dogs, and it's extremely concerning because that has created in a lot of communities within New York just an extremely revolving door of young professionals that come for a few years and now they leave, right? They don't have kids, they don't start families, they don't make a close group of friends within that community in the city they moved in. It's very transitional, and that shows, right? That shows on the buildings, right? When you know you're
That's
going
true.
to be in a space in an apartment for just a few years, you don't care that maybe the door is falling down. There's some things that need to be retouched. You don't care much about it. When it's your space and you'll be there with your family for a few years, you are more likely to maybe flag the landlord, hey, listen, like this is not acceptable. Can you fix it, right? But for these transitional communities that young professionals come and then go in a few years, that is not the case. So that really affects that community as a whole. So we're watching that trend of like, well, what cities are growing in population, right? What cities are building more housing? So right now, Austin is a great example where rent has fallen so much just because there's a lot of multifamilies and housing being built.
Interesting.
And if you go to Austin right now, you can count perhaps 30. Uh, what do they call I forget the name in English, but it's the things that grab the heavy things of a building and they raise all the way to the top. Crane. It's a crane.
Oh yeah, the
You
cranes,
can
the
count
crane. Yeah.
up to 30 cranes in Austin because all these buildings are being developed and built, right? So,
Yeah.
and I don't think there's any other city in the US that has as much development as Austin, Texas right now. And that's
Wow.
going to be very interesting to see how that affects the housing price, right? So it's already coming down. It's supposed to go down a lot more in the next 5 years. And that will show us what happens when a city allows developers to build more housing, right? Are more people going to move to Austin now with the falling rent, which at some point it will stabilize, right? It's not going to fall forever. But how is that going to affect the local businesses? How is that going to affect the economy? And maybe more cities follow suit, right? San Francisco there's a big problem that there's a lot of building codes that they just don't allow developers to build like skyscrapers as they used to anymore, you know. And so will Austin inspire other cities to become more dense? So that's the other trend that we're watching.
But San Francisco became so expensive, and with COVID, all the tower were devastated. I mean, just empty, and you still have a huge amount of empty towers in San Francisco. Yeah, yeah, I love that. It's it's almost like moving from tech-driven cities to human-enabled cities. Houston, um, are there any uh, technologies or tools like AI, sensors, data layers that you are exciting about or experimenting with right now?
Yeah. There's definitely a few sensor data layers that I've seen that I'm very excited. I forget the name of it, but there's this specific sensor that it's like a fire alarm. You install it on the ceiling of an office, and it will tell you things such as data density, right? Where
Yep.
within that space are people staying,
Yeah.
and the
Yeah.
beautiful thing about the product that I saw is that the battery lasts for 10 years. So you just install it, kind of forget about it, and then for 10 years this thing is just sending data to you about how your space is being used, right? So
Yeah. I
and
saw that. That's
yeah,
wonderful.
and
I
that
love
was
it.
not possible a few years ago. That is all thanks to AI, right? So I'm excited to see how spaces develop now with more data, more vision, right? More feng shui based on what they see on the usability of their spaces, right? That's one
Mhm.
of the ones that I saw recently that I'm very excited to see how it impacts spaces, and then just AI in general, right? How we're seeing a lot of technologies back into redesigning spaces, right? And now the image generation and image editing has gotten so great with the newest developments of XAI's models and OpenAI's models. I think that unlocks so many possibilities, right? So very excited for those
That's,
two things.
that's right. That's right. Fantastic. Fantastic. Um, okay, let's look ahead a little bit. Let's fast forward end of 2025. Um, what does success look like for you and Just Gravity by then? And what impact are you aiming to create?
Yeah. Amazing question. And by the end of 2025, right, we want to make sure that we have helped 1,000 clients find their dream space or their dream community using our tool, right? So that means that our technology will aid them at some point on the process. And right now, we are launching a new pilot project in Houston where clients can search all the available spaces using AI, right? So you can just tell it, I want an office with a big window, for example, and our AI will go and find any of the listings with that, right? That does not exist today. If you want to find an office with big windows, you have to go look at the 5,000 listings and go through all the photos and try to find a space that with big windows. So now our AI will enable to find a semantic search based on characteristics from images, right? And a lot of other things. So we're excited for that specific development of our product. We're testing it first in Houston. So if you're any commercial agent or broker in Houston and would like access to it and would like your listings to be searchable by AI, even just show up in the replies in ChatGPT, talk to us. We'll work something out.
That's wonderful. I love it. I love it. And are there any collaboration, partnership, or conversation with you're actively seeking that could help you get there?
There's a few that we're actively seeking, and I will keep that confidential for now. But
Of course.
hopefully, if we get that working, we'll be able to have data now for the entire country, right? So right now we're testing this in Houston, and there's a few cities we can test it in, but we don't have all the data that we need for our AI to work unless we partner with the people that we are pursuing at the moment.
Ah, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Um, yeah, don't say everything. Um regarding, of course, you have a mission, then you need the right mindset. And one thing I have noticed about founders who build mission-driven company is that they often operate from a very intentional mindset. And how do you stay grounded in your mission when the world keeps pushing for speed and scale?
Yeah, that is a great question, and I think that at least for me, it comes natural, right? I don't need much to I don't need to continue to refocus because what I'm doing, there's nobody else that is going to. Nobody else will do it. It's up to me. There's no other option, and this needs to exist. And I think that specific mission allows me to remain grounded on. Okay, well, this needs to exist. This needs to be done, and it's just something in the back of my mind that everything that I do is always keeps that in mind. My mission, what I'm
Always.
working on, always. So like even a decision to be on this podcast, right? It's like does it help me get there faster? So if the answer is yes, then I do that thing, right? And that simplifies so many things in my life. It's like does it move the ball forward for my mission, right? And that's really the best grounding place that I can think of as far as mindset. Now, there's a few things like burnout and things like that, right? It's a roller coaster. Some days are great, some days are bad. But it, we can chat about that after.
Yeah. You have a growth mindset. That's a thing. And but any routines, philosophies, or frameworks you use to stay aligned before
Yeah,
into deep.
I would say I have this mantra of like don't force it, right? I have a to-do list with 1,000 things to do. How do I prioritize? I trust my own intuition, my own hunch. I look at it, and if something inspires me to go start working on that, then I do that. If it doesn't inspire me, then I just don't force it. When you force things, is when you have work that is not excellent, that is not the best that you can do, right? And that's kind of it. It's like trust my gut, trust my hunches, trust my intentions, right? Where my attention goes is perhaps where it needs to go in my mind because my mission is clear. I know what needs to get done, and if I think this needs to get done right now, even though perhaps it was in my to do list with 1,000 other things, then I go on jump on that. You know,
What keeps you going when things get difficult? Because obviously there is failures or hardship, but
yeah, I think on difficult days, the very first thing I do is I go to the gym. So
yeah,
I go for a
fantastic.
run or I go for a bike ride, and then I go hit the weights, and that usually clears my mind. It makes you see things in a different perspective, right? When you're running for 3 or 5 miles up to your last breath, right, it puts things into perspective. That whatever else you were doing, it wasn't that hard. So I think definitely, for me personally, physical activity is a big outlet, a big way to just get rid of a bad day, right, with a win, which is physical. So yeah.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Um, Anything you would like to add that I couldn't mention, or any specifics or something you have in mind?
Um, Yeah, I think you
You
cover
wa-
a lot of really great questions. I will just say if you are in the commercial real estate space and you're interested in seeing how AI is shaping the space, happy to have a chat with you. Um, and thank you for listening.
yeah, definitely, definitely. It was a great conversation, Joanne. It's been an incredible talk, and thank you for sharing your perspective so openly. You are clearly building something meaningful that goes way beyond tech. And before we wrap up, where's the best place for people to connect with you and learn more about Just Gravities?
Yeah, so I am very active on LinkedIn, especially. They can also just send me an email. It is Johann at justgravitate.com. That is JOHANN at JustGravitate.com. So just gravitate. And yeah, I'll respond as soon as I am able to.
That's wonderful. Awesome, awesome. We will be including all those links in the show notes. Thank you again for being here, and I can't wait to share this episode with the world. And thank you very much, and we stay connected.
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me,
Thank you
Lauren.
for everybody. Thank you,
Bye.
John. Bye bye.